In the previous episode, Ezekiel received his final vision. A new temple measured with perfect precision, the glory of God returning through the east gate to dwell forever, and a river of life flowing from the sanctuary to heal even the Dead Sea. Now we turn to another prophet in Babylon, one whose story unfolds not in visions of temples, but in the courts of kings, where faith is tested by fire and faithfulness is rewarded with dreams. The year is approximately 605 before the Common Era. Nebuchadnezzar has just won the Battle of Carchemish, crushing the Egyptian army and establishing Babylon as the dominant power in the ancient Near East. He marches toward Jerusalem. This is the first deportation, not yet the destruction of the city, but a warning, a demonstration of power. Nebuchadnezzar takes hostages from the royal family and the nobility, carrying them back to Babylon as guarantees of Judah's submission. Among these hostages is a young man named Daniel. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the vessels of the house of God. The Lord gave. Even in defeat, even in exile, the text insists that God is in control. Nebuchadnezzar's victory is not a triumph over the God of Israel. It is the God of Israel handing his people over to judgment. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. The temple vessels end up in a pagan treasury. The sacred objects that belonged in the house of the Lord now decorate the house of Marduk. The humiliation is complete. The Babylonians did not see this as mere political symbolism. They sincerely believed their gods were real, that Marduk had granted Nebuchadnezzar victory. Babylonian religion was not cynical manipulation, but genuine conviction, however mistaken. The conflict Daniel will face is not between sincerity and fraud, but between true worship and sincere but false worship. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace. Nebuchadnezzar is not simply taking hostages, he is harvesting talent. He wants the best and brightest of Judah, young men who can be trained to serve his empire. Without blemish, good appearance, skillful in wisdom, endowed with knowledge. These are the qualifications, the cream of Jerusalem's youth. And to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. They will learn Babylonian. They will read Babylonian texts. They will become Babylonians in everything but blood. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. 3 years of training, royal food, royal wine, every advantage, every luxury. The goal is assimilation. These young Israelites will forget where they came from. They will become loyal servants of Babylon. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. 4 young men from Judah. Their names in Hebrew carry meaning. Daniel means God is my judge. Hananiah means the Lord shows grace. Mishael means who is like God. Azariah means the Lord helps. Every time their names are spoken, they proclaim the God of Israel. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. The first assault on their identity. New names, Babylonian names, names that invoke Babylonian gods. Belteshazzar means Bel protect his life. Shadrach may mean command of Aku, the moon god. Meshach may mean who is like Aku. Abednego means servant of Nebo. The God of Israel has been replaced, at least in their official designations. The young men are now tagged with the names of foreign deities. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. A small act of resistance, a quiet refusal to compromise. The food itself may not have been forbidden by the law of Moses, but it represented something larger. Accepting the king's food meant accepting the king's authority completely. Eating from the king's table meant becoming the king's man. Daniel draws a line. Therefore he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. He does not rebel openly. He does not refuse with defiance. He asks permission. He works within the system while maintaining his integrity. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. God, again, working behind the scenes, softening hearts, creating opportunities. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, "I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you were in worse condition than the youths who are of your own age? So you would endanger my head with the king." The official is afraid. If the Hebrew youth look worse than the others, it will be his head on the block. The risk is too great. Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had assigned over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink." Daniel proposes a test. 10 days, vegetables and water only. Then compare the results. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants according to what you see. If they look worse, the steward can do whatever he wants. If they look better, they continue with vegetables. It is reasonable, it is respectful, it is wise. So he listened to them in this matter and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. The test succeeds. Vegetables and water produce better results than royal delicacies. So the steward took away their food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables. The first victory, small but significant. Daniel has learned that faithfulness in small things leads to faithfulness in large ones. As for these 4 youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. God gives learning, skill, wisdom, and to Daniel specifically, understanding of visions and dreams. This gift will define his career. At the end of the time, when the king had commanded that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. The 3 years are complete. The young men stand before the king for examination. And the king spoke with them, and among all of them none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king. And in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all his kingdom. 10 times better, not slightly superior, dramatically, overwhelmingly better. The young men from conquered Judah outperform all the specialists of the Babylonian Empire. And Daniel was there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. A note that reaches across decades. Daniel will serve through the entire Babylonian captivity and into the Persian period. He will outlast Nebuchadnezzar. He will outlast Babylon itself. In the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. The experts are called, the professional dream interpreters of Babylon. So they came in and stood before the king. And the king said to them, "I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream." A simple enough request, it seems. The king has dreamed, he wants to understand. Then the Chaldean said to the king, "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation." The standard procedure: tell us the dream, and we will explain what it means. But Nebuchadnezzar changes the rules. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, "The word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins." Not just the interpretation, the dream itself. If you are truly wise, truly connected to divine knowledge, you should be able to tell me what I dreamed. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and its interpretation. The stakes are absolute. Death. The king declared to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, "Are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen and its interpretation?" The king asks, "Can you really do this?" Daniel answered the king and said, "No wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days." Daniel immediately redirects, "Not my wisdom, not human ability. There is a God in heaven. Your dream and the visions of your head as you lay in bed are these." And Daniel tells the king what he dreamed. A great image, enormous, terrifying. Its head of gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. A stone not carved by human hands destroys the entire statue. It strikes the weak point and brings everything crashing down. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away so that not a trace of them could be found. The kingdoms of men vanish, blown away like chaff. No trace remains. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. The stone grows. It becomes a mountain. It fills everything. This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. Daniel explains, "You, O king, the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, and the might, and the glory, and into whose hand he has given, wherever they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heavens, making you rule over them all, you are the head of gold. Nebuchadnezzar is the golden head, the greatest of the kingdoms represented in the image. Another kingdom, inferior to you, shall arise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. Kingdoms will follow, silver after gold, bronze after silver, each inferior in some way to what came before. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. A fourth kingdom, iron-like, crushing everything. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. The final kingdom is mixed, strong and weak together, iron and clay, which do not adhere. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. The stone is God's kingdom. It will destroy all human empires. It will last forever. Inasmuch as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, a great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation sure. The prophecy is reliable. The future is fixed. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and paid homage to Daniel, and commanded that an offering and incense be offered up to him. The king of Babylon prostrates himself before a Hebrew captive. The king answered and said to Daniel, "Truly, your God is God of gods and Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery." Nebuchadnezzar confesses, "The God of Israel is supreme. The God of the exiles is above all." Then the king gave Daniel high honors and many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. Daniel rises from captive to ruler, from hostage to governor. Daniel made a request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel remained at the king's court. Daniel's friends are promoted too. They share in his success. The young men who refused the king's food now rule the king's province. Faithfulness has been rewarded. The God who gives wisdom has given power as well. But the tests are not over. The furnace is being heated. Thank you for listening to this episode about Daniel and his companions in the court of Babylon. If this story of faithfulness in exile and divine revelation has moved you, please consider subscribing and sharing this series with others. In the next episode, Nebuchadnezzar builds a golden image and demands that all people bow down and worship it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will face a choice between obedience to the king and faithfulness to God, a choice that leads directly into the flames.